Happy Thursday, guys. So I'm back with another Thursday Thoughts video. It is I think it's about part 3 or 4 in my little 6-part video series called Thursday Thoughts, where I share with you something I've been thinking about in the lead up to a Thursday video. And today I want to talk to you about escapism. Guys, I'm just going to say this to you straight. Whatever it is you're trying to use to escape, whatever it is going on in your life, you still have to come back to it. That is something that has taken me a lot of years to be able to actually understand, that the things that I was running from, I eventually had to come back and deal with them. I can, from young, pinpoint where my journey with escapism started. And it started when I was going through sexual abuse, when I was in that experience for 5 years being sexually abused by my dad. In the midst of going through those painful and horrible experiences with my dad, I used to daydream. I used to use my mind to escape and disassociate from the things that were going on at the time of the abuse. And after I left the care system, after I came into the care system, after I was taken into care at 13, I then started to use other things to escape my reality, to escape the nightmares, to escape the pain, to escape the reality of my life, because at that time I was living in care. I was using things like alcohol at 14, smoking weed at 14, just engaging in reckless behaviors, all different types of things that kept me distracted and not focused on my life, because at the time my life was a mess. But I noticed that as I got older, I still continued to try and find things to help me to escape my reality. It was really, really hard, especially when you're going through very difficult feelings, when you're going through depression, when you're going through, not feeling good about yourself, hating yourself, when you're going through your life just not being where you thought it would be. It can be quite easy to always be seeking something to escape, because when I was going through escapism, I just kept thinking to myself, anything that I'm doing is better than the reality that I'm living. So one of the things that I picked up in my 20s was shopping. Shopping to alleviate my pain, shopping to deal with difficult emotions, difficult feelings, as a way of escapism. Shopping for me was something that gave me that immediate hit of feeling good, of, that kind of rush of a little rush, I should say, of happiness. It gave me all those things. But the reality is, after I had my little hit of escapism, I still had to come back and face the reality of my life. And obviously, when you're shopping, when you're doing these types of things, obviously it is taken away from what you could be using your money for in a positive way. It wasn't like once in a while. I was doing this often, and obviously spending my money on things just to escape. Not anything that I really needed. It was just something that gave me that instant gratification, that instant high to escape my life. And it took me a long time to understand that no matter what vices I used, when I looked back over my life about the different vices I used to escape, I still had to come back to the reality of my life and face it. And that in itself was horrible. It wasn't easy. It made me feel quite sad. It made me feel frustrated. It made me feel quite depressed. It made me feel hopeless. The fact that when I looked at my life at certain stages, I just felt that there was nothing going on for me in my life. And the reason why I'm talking about escapism is because I've been reminded about my kind of route and my journey of escapism. When I look on social media, I see a lot of people who are using other people's lives or things to escape their reality. And nobody's saying, that you can't have downtime and you can't have a little moment to get away from the hard, slog of life and, the difficulties of life. But when you're constantly living in a state of escapism, always kind of inserting your kind of life into other people's lives or into things that are nothing to do with your life, it becomes very hard for you to come out of it. It's very difficult. And I know life is hard for a lot of people. We have I mean, I'm over here in London, UK. We've got a lot going on, with, the cost of living, and I'm sure it's the same in other parts of the world. There doesn't ever seem to be any good news. It's always pressure, it's always stress, it's always strain. It's very, very hard. It can be very hard to feel hopeful about your life. I have found that myself. But I also know as well that escapism is not a long-term solution. Escapism is not going to fix the problems in your life. And it may be hard to hear, but the way to deal with escapism is to face whatever issues you've got going on in your life, and it is hard and it is difficult. Maybe it's you're dealing with, a strain on your finances or family issues or relationship issues. Whatever it is, you have to deal with it, because that is the only way that your life is going to be better. The time that a lot of people spend in escapism, looking at other people's lives, or investing so much time and energy in other people's lives, is time taken away from their own life. I had to get back focused on my own life. I had to look on my life. I had to deal with it in the state that it was. I had to deal with, how I was trying to escape and, make my life better. And I did that through a number of things. I did that through my relationship with Christ, praying and asking God for help in this area and asking for him to give me strength to overcome, my challenges, and helping me to be thankful and grateful for the life I have, even in its, even in the state that it was, not in the state that I wanted it to be, but still being grateful and thankful for it, investing time in doing things that were positive for my life. I also had to go back for a brief bout of therapy last year as well, because there was, different challenges that I was having in my life. And some of those things haven't changed, but I have changed how I deal with them now. And one of the things I've changed is not indulging in escapism anymore. I don't shop like I used to anymore. I don't try and find an easy way out of my situations anymore. I understand that some things will take time to work through, and I have to be invested in my life. But I wanted to share that with you in case you are struggling with escapism, whatever your vice is. I just want to encourage you to get help and support with, facing the things in your life that are difficult. I know it's not easy, especially when there is so much external pressure going on right now in the world and, in people's individual lives. But in the long run, escapism is not going to help you. It's not going to bring you forward in your life. And all it does is waste your time. But I just wanted to share that with you today. Let me know in the comments what you think about escapism. Have you struggled with it, and what has helped you?